for use on our website as a resource. So just letting you know that. If again, just for the people who've just joined, if you can keep your cameras off and your microphones on mute unless you're involved in a discussion, and then it'd be great to see your faces and hear you obviously as well. And yeah, and thank you very much for being here. We've had a great start to the conference so far. And I'm pleased to be co-presenting, co-facilitating this session with Annie Murr, who started us off fantastically today with a brilliant speech. There she is waving. Thanks, Annie. So I'm going to get us started in this session today, which is going to be a reflective session as well as hearing from students and practice educators as well. So this conference itself was born out of an agreed need across the region, and it's a priority for the teaching partnership to promote the role of the practice educator in a positive light and as a valuable and essential part of social work education, and obviously contributing to building the workforce, a strong workforce as well. So the aim of today is to provide a reflective space for current and prospective practice educators to consider the positive impact of practice education on themselves, on the students they support, the organisations they work for, and the profession as a whole as well. So we're going to hear from a current student, 2 practice educators, as I mentioned, and hopefully, by the end of the session, we will have fortified our own understanding of and appreciation of the benefits of becoming and remaining a practice educator, and how we can best support students to have that positive and quality placement experience. And I know I don't just speak for myself when I say, like, I had a very positive experience on placement, and I very much remember, I don't think I'll ever forget, particularly my first practice educator, who was fantastic and so supportive and just helped me in so many ways, beyond just sort of teaching me social work skills and knowledge. And I started my planning for this session by thinking about sort of all the things that practice educators do, because it really is a complex and varied role, very rewarding, but it's not always recognised. I think it's been strengthened since the PEPs were refreshed and strengthened. But even so, we've got a way to go, I think, to award it the recognition that it deserves. So I started listing some things that practice educators do, and I put a post on Twitter as well, and some of the practice educators were added some things in. So I just did a slide with some of the things. I couldn't fit everything on the slides that people were suggesting, and it just made me think about actually how varied the role is and how much we do. And each one of these you could put into, you could make into a subcategory, and there are so many different areas and different things that practice educators do to support students, from that one-to-one work with actually promoting practice education to their teams and their organisations as well. We mentioned being gatekeepers to the profession, as well as supporting students emotionally as well. So I know that there are many more things, and this was just really to highlight everything that you do, and to have that as a visual as well. But I was thinking to myself, it'd be good to to have a bit of a word cloud and be adding to this list as we go through the next couple of years in the teaching partnership, and prioritising valuing practice educators as well. So one of the things we're focusing on today is the practice educator and student relationship, because we know that that's fundamental to creating a safe space for students to learn and develop as well. And so I just included this quote from Young et al.'s research into the practice educator and student relationship, which says that we need to develop skills, knowledge and confidence to manage the complexities and different demands of their role. And it's also important for practice educators to invest time to develop and sustain meaningful relationships with students, and to create a safe space for critical dialogue to take place. A trusting relationship is fundamental if students and practice educators are to raise and explore different issues. So that sort of takes me in nicely to my next guest, who is Linda Campbell. And Linda, I know you're on your first placement, aren't you, at the moment? But I wondered if you could tell us a bit about that and a little bit about your sort of social work journey so far.
Yes. Hi, my name's Linda Campbell. I'm currently a second year student on the BA course at the University of Birmingham, and I am doing my first placement with Birmingham City Council in the adult social care team. And my journey to social work has sort of come from life experiences of caring for family members and really wanting to kind of look at the different aspects of child protection. So that has led me into social work. And I started my social work degree right in the height of the pandemic. So we had a lot of online learning. And again, that's kind of followed through into placement where a lot of it is based online. We're working from home. So it's just trying to navigate that and how the course has obviously changed to equip us for going, for this new way of working from home and conducting visits and uploading information and that sort of independent research a lot of the time being from home. So it's been a journey, but it's been quite exciting at the same time as well.
Yeah, fabulous. So you started your journey actually in the pandemic, didn't you, as well? So that's kind of the social work that you've known so far. So I guess it's even more important to have that support, isn't it? From your PE and teams. So I know from previous discussions you've had a sort of positive experience so far, haven't you, on placement. And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how you have, what's helped you to build a relationship with your practice educator and how that's helped with that positive experience on placement.
So from pretty much from the start, when we had our placement agreement meeting, everything was very clear. I had a chance to ask questions. They had a chance to ask me questions about my experience and, kind of what my life situation is. I have 2 children. So again, taking that into consideration in terms of to reflect my working hours. So a lot of it from the start was very much focused on as well what my learning needs were, what I felt I already knew, what I wanted to learn. And I really felt confident in the information that they provided in that placement agreement meeting, that this was what they could do to support that, this is what we could do, and discussing any barriers as well. And if I felt comfortable working from home and offering solutions if I didn't, if I ever felt I wanted to kind of have that office experience, there was always a solution or a working solution to any barriers or problems that we thought might be an issue going forward.
So well-being was quite a focus then.
Yes, definitely. I think, again, from the pandemic, I think that's been heightened as well, of ensuring that people are, are they well in themselves, what their home situation is like, how are they coping? Because a lot of the cases that we get through can be quite challenging and can be quite emotive as well. So I think that was very key, just kind of being able to check in and every supervision there was a tool to understand my well-being, for me to kind of articulate that and that safe space that I could talk about, whether it was home life or whether it was university or whether it was placement, and kind of bring all of that together and look at, I suppose, how that meets the PCFs and the values and ethics that we follow within social work.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. And I think you mentioned before as well that your practice educators use the Mandela model with you as well. Is
Yeah,
that right?
that's right. Yeah, that was one of the things I was a little bit worried about going into placement. I had completed an assignment about racism and institutional racism, and was a little bit worried about the numbers of Black and minority ethnic students who hadn't passed their ASYE, or who didn't have that representation within their teams. And I found that has been, I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like I've gone into a team where I have a huge diverse of people of all different levels within the organisation, where I can kind of look at my organisation and say, actually, do you know what? That's somewhere I could see myself. There's somebody who looks like me, who is in that role or who is leading this team. And I think that's really, really key as well. And using that Mandela model has helped me and my practice educator and my practice supervisor to understand my educational experiences, my life experiences, how they've shaped me to be where I am at the moment. And again, vice versa, me understanding their life experiences as well, and understanding where our values have come from and how they shape the decisions and the judgments that we make going forward.
Brilliant, thank you. It does sound like you've had a really sort of positive experience and have been able to build a very sort of trusting relationship with your practice educator. The sounds of which has helped create that safe space and that reassurance for you as well going forwards. Thank you. So what, from your experiences then, what do you think are some of the barriers to building a sort of positive relationship and with sort of practice educator and student, and how do you think these could be overcome?
I think, again, from my experience with COVID, working from home, I think that can be a barrier. I think we've done quite well between me and my practice educator to sort of combat that by trying to make time to meet up in person, as well as having that flexibility of being able to go onto Teams. But I do think if I had been solely on Teams the whole time, I think I would have found that quite difficult to build that relationship. Not kind of being able to pick up on the body language and really getting to know somebody as well, and being able to go into an office or a hospital and to be introduced to a team as well. It's quite difficult sometimes to build relationships with other members of the team solely online. So having that kind of flexibility of going into the hospital and meeting, there might not be social workers, but it's a multidisciplinary team, and those are people that I might potentially need to speak to. So being able to put a name to a face and know that they've met me and they understand my role, again, has really helped, which I think would have sort of stalled my learning in terms of being able to contact people and feeling confident in contacting people. And I think at the start, with the other team that I work with, that was also a bit of a barrier. With Teams meetings were only on certain days, so it could be a couple of weeks before I had a chance to meet with people and introduce myself. So that kind of halted some of the shadowing opportunities I had. So it meant for a few weeks I didn't have those, and then by the time I did, it was trying to fit them in with all the other things I had then booked into my diary. So I think shadowing is definitely one of the ones that kind of halts, because you kind of feel like you're being held back, and there's only so much sometimes that a practice educator or supervisor does have time for. And I think it's important to understand that as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I know you've mentioned time before, haven't you? And specifically, yes, you'd found when you were given time outside of the usual supervision sessions as well. I know you've mentioned that before. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, how that's been helpful?
Yes. Yeah, so just being able to contact my practice educator or supervisor when I have got a problem outside of supervision, and knowing that it might not be right there and then that they've got time for it, but there will always be a message back to say, right, I'm free on this day, you're free at this time, let's meet up and let's discuss it. And I think that for me was a lot better than a sort of 5-minute rushed phone call at the time, having that time for me then to think about, okay, what is it I'm asking, and also to give them a bit of background on maybe what the situation is, what I'm worried about, for them to be able to give me an answer that I can go away and say, do you know what, actually, I'm really happy with that. I'm glad we've had that time to discuss. And, if I felt I needed to discuss a little bit more, knowing that there's that time there that I can sort of ask those extra questions and not feeling rushed into making a decision or having to then go away and think, oh gosh, I wish I'd said this, or I haven't actually asked what I wanted to ask. So that was really important, that time has always been made.
Thank you. And can you think of any other sort of particularly helpful ways that you've been supported on placement by your practice educator or supervisor or the team?
Yeah, I think just in supervisions have really, really helped me. I don't think I kind of really understood the importance of it before I started placement. And I think just being able to get that feedback and, kind of understand it and be able to sit there and reflect, is actually, I understand, I know what you're saying. And I think in terms of working with my practice educator and supervisor, them shadowing them, having opportunities to shadow them, and they ask me for feedback, how do I feel it went, and kind of giving me that responsibility of understanding how a process should be, and using my own mind to say, actually, this theory was used, or this approach was used, or actually I think this could have been a little bit better, and not feeling that I'm going to get into trouble if I say, oh no, they shouldn't have done this, but that that two-way conversation of you're learning as well as I am, and it is a continuous learning development as a social worker. And I think that again is key, because a lot of students, we go into it thinking we have to know everything, and actually we don't. There will be things that we don't understand or that we need to work on, and I think having that reflected back at a practice educator and supervisor level is very, very key.
Thank you. I always used to really look forward to my supervision sessions, and I know that not all students in my cohort had that same experience, that how helpful it was. But I know I certainly found it very useful for my for my learning and development, and I couldn't think how we could get on without it really in social work. So what then would your sort of top pieces of advice be to practice educators to give students a positive experience on placement?
I think introducing them to the team around them, letting them know, what specialisms other people have, because then it kind of takes that pressure off them as well. But it gives that student that bit of independence to be encouraged to say, right, actually, I'm really interested in this area, or I've got a question that actually might be worthwhile speaking to somebody who is dealing with cases like that, or has that experience, and being able to build up their own network as well of support within the team, because I think it's really nice to have that network within a team and not just have one or two people that you feel you can go to, because when you finish placement and you're qualified, you are going to build a network, you are going to need to build relationships with people. And I think having that encouragement and that confidence from a practice educator to say, right, this is so and so, this is this person, and just feel like you can approach them. You can go to somebody and ask for advice and not feel like you're kind of overstepping a mark, and definitely critical feedback, and helping them to understand their strengths and their weaknesses as well, and how we move forward from that, whether it's a plan of, right, this is what we need to look at next. My midpoint review, it was very clear of what I had achieved, but then it was also very clear of actually these are the things we would like you to do next. And I think that gave me a bit of a confidence boost, knowing that everything that I had achieved, there was still so much more to go, but it was things that I was like, well, I'm ready for this. I feel confident in going forward with that. And I think that's definitely made me feel at ease a lot of the time whilst I'm on placement.
Thank you. And finally, do you have any tips or advice for students as well? So if we have any students who are perhaps watching this afterwards, or any advice that practice educators can pass on, say, to students, so that they can get the most out of placement and their relationship as well with their PE?
I think being proactive, I think that's definitely helped me. I had a period of 2 weeks where my practice supervisor was off, and although I had my practice educator there as well, there were aspects of my placement that my practice supervisor kind of had control over in some way. So I made sure that I had emailed anybody that I could to find out information, or for shadowing opportunities, and being present in multidisciplinary meetings, teams meetings, and just building up those networks, and building up that confidence to speak up in the meetings as well, and offer advice and kind of see where my knowledge is at and how that fits into actually the social work environment. And I think that has definitely really helped me just kind of pushing forward with my own learning, and being able to go back to my practice educator and say, actually, do you know, I found that out myself. I've spoken to this person, and kind of giving them that feedback and that understanding of what I've learned. Also, really, as a student, can be quite empowering to know that you can do that, and you facilitated that for yourself as well. So I think that again is just really key, just being proactive and speaking to who you can, and networking and building those relationships for yourself as well. You're on mute, Deborah.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda, so much for just for sharing your experiences and insights. I think it's so important for us as practice educators to learn and develop by hearing from people who are at the receiving end of practice education as well, and getting that feedback from yourself is fantastic. And I could happily talk about this with you all day. Actually, it's a really lovely topic to focus on. But we're in a reflective session, so we're going to open up to the rest rest of the group and the attendees. So I just sort of put it out there to yourselves really. Did any of this sort of resonate with you? Do you have any questions for Linda or experiences that you can share either with students who you may have had currently or recently, or from your own experiences as a student, to highlight some more of these sort of strategies and yeah, methods for supporting students on placement? Does anyone have any experience of using some of the methods that that Linda was talking about there as well? Like, well, there was actually, you mentioned well-being tools, didn't you, and the Mandela model and how useful you'd found those. I'm just wondering if there are others out there who have experience of using those effectively as well with students. We have a hand. Amanda.
Yes, I was just going to mention that I think the Mandela model is a very good way to enable discussions between practice educators and students, so that you get right at the beginning of the placement a good idea of where the student's coming from. Because if you don't have that sort of basis to work with, then any issues that you might encounter later, like Linda was talking about, you know, perhaps childcare or something like that, if you've asked the right questions in the first place to begin to understand the student's position, then you're much more likely to be working with them, rather than sort of perhaps criticising somebody because, you know, they couldn't quite make the 9 o'clock meeting or something like that. So I would I don't think it necessarily has to be Mandela, but similar models or ways of conversation that enable the student and the practice educator to share. And it's not just a one-way process. It's because the Mandela model is about a conversation that needs to happen. So, you know, the student also getting to know where the practice educator's coming from, what their experiences of life and work and everything else are. You know, it makes the relationship much more two-way and helps to balance the power in that relationship, I think.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. I've got Ros next, and then I'll come to you, Suzanne. Okay. So Ros.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I've started using for that first conversation the social graces, and I found that really, really useful. So again, it is that two-way discussion. I think it's been particularly useful now we're not in the office together, because there would be bits that you would pick up if you're with the student every day, but because that's not happening, I think we need to sort of manufacture that conversation, and it's just worked so well, I found.
Thanks, Ros. Yeah, it is a very useful model across sort of supervision and working with students, isn't it? Can be used in lots of different ways. So thank you for that. Suzanne, you had a question.
Yeah, well, no, I haven't got a question. I was
A
just going to
reflection.
say, very early on with supervision online with a student, I sort of started off by asking the student a little bit like with Linda, you know, how did you get to where you are doing your degree? And then I shared with them my journey as well. So I thought that was quite a good way to say, well, you know, this is where I started and this is where I've ended up. And so it's kind of like a bit more sharing. I think you've got to be careful about not sharing too much kind of personal detail. But because I've been a social worker for so long, there are certain scenarios that I'm quite happy to share with the student to try and identify certain things, certain elements, not necessarily always connected to the PCFs, but more about how I felt about things. And I also make sure that I ask the student, they're in a very similar situation to Linda, they've got 4 children. So obviously it's about, you know, is this supervision time good for you? and I am going to meet her. I'm going to go up and meet her for the second direct observation. So we're both kind of really quite looking forward to that. So we've built a relationship, which I think is good.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. Yeah, there's something there about power as well, isn't there? About sort of sharing, and sort of, yeah, reducing the impact, I guess, or changing that power dynamic by sort of both sharing things like that. I like the idea of that journey, as well, both sharing the journey. Yeah, that's fantastic. Anyone else got any reflections on that, and you know what Linda said, or experiences on placement? Do you do like I do and think back to your, to yourself on placement and the impact of your practice educator? I know that I often sort of think about that and sort of try and model, try and model myself and my own sort of work and techniques, I guess, on how I was supported as a student as well. If that resonates with anyone. Yeah, so Annie's put some useful links there. Thanks, Annie, in the chat, to Mandela model and social graces as well, for people to look at. So that's fine. So I just want to thank you again, Linda, because it's a brave thing to do as well, to come and talk in front of all these practice educators as well. Yes, you're getting some applause there, and I think your insights and observations on good practice in practice education, I think, will give you a really good foundation as well. And we might be looking at the future practice educator here, so in a few years you might be on the other on the other side with this as well, and I hope you are, because we need people like that in as practice educators though. So thank you very much. I hope you can stick around as well, yeah, I'm going to move on to the next section. So we have a video next of Rebecca and Lauren, who are practice educators. So we're just going to listen to them talk about their experiences of practice education for 10 minutes, and then we'll open up for a bit more discussion at that point. So hopefully Adam will be able to.
Hi, can you tell me something bit about yourself, Lauren?
Okay, so a bit about me then. My name is Lauren Coleman and I'm a team manager in the Nuneaton Children's team. I've been a team manager since 2017. Prior to that, I actually started as an ASYE within the team. So I started my journey as a social worker in 2013 and stepped up thereafter and remained in the team since.
Okay, what about you, Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Taylor and I'm a team manager in the Nuneaton Children's team. I joined the team in 2009 and progressed to being a team manager in 2015.
Okay. Can you tell me about your experience of being practice educator and how many students you had?
Okay, so I've had in total, I think, about 4 students. I should be having my 5th one started in May of this year. In terms of being a practice educator, I started taking students from 2016. At the time, I was doing my Enabling Others, and then I've done my TAP as a practice educator. I've taken students from both Coventry University and also from Bath University. In relation to students, they generally have social work, while they're practicing to be a social worker in terms of the degree. But I've also had students that have done social work related degrees. So as part of their placement, they've come and joined the team. Alongside taking students, I've also had volunteers and apprentices.
Okay, what about you, Rebecca?
I took my first student back in 2012 as part of my Enabling Others programme. I really enjoyed having a student, so I've continued to have students throughout my time during the team. I've had 12 students to date so far, and I have another one joining me in April. In terms of the students I've had students from Coventry University, Warwick University, Birmingham University, and I've currently got one from Wolverhampton University. I've also had Think Ahead students who come from the Adult Mental Health Service, and I've also had an apprentice and lots of volunteers come into Shadow for days here and there.
Okay. Rebecca, can you tell me why you have stayed with Warwickshire County Council and what Warwickshire County Council can offer?
Okay. So I came to Warwickshire County Council in 2009. I qualified in 2008 but had a gap year. I think what I really like about Warwickshire County Council is they have a very clear career pathway. They offer a fantastic ASYE programme and intense support for that first year. Warwickshire work alongside Siobhan McLean, who does the workshops for the ASYE students. And the support really has been the key for me. I think in the team that we're in, it's frontline work, and I think it's always very busy and you're always going to have your challenges wherever you go. What I like about the team is the support that you get from the team. Nuneaton Children's team particularly, there's a very stable management group. Our operations manager has actually been here for 20 years on Friday, which is unheard of in a lot of frontline teams. I think Warwickshire County Council offer a lot of training opportunities to develop yourself, and they encourage you to progress and be the best you can be. From personal experience, I've been encouraged to do the first line management programme, which I'm currently doing at the moment, and I work alongside a lot of different managers from various local authorities. The idea of that programme is bringing the best back to your service and in improving your service and making changes where possible. I've also been encouraged to do the national accreditation, and Warwickshire County Council has funded me to do that. There's a lot of opportunities within Warwickshire to be able to explore different areas of social work. Lots of secondment opportunities come up to go and try out different areas of social work, and you're encouraged and supported to do that if that's what you want to do.
Okay. Lauren, can you tell me why do you continue to have students and what are the benefits of taking students?
Okay, so going back to what Rebecca said, in terms of Warwickshire County Council, it's a good council to work for, and in terms of our students, we could offer a good learning environment, whereby a lot of our students generally go on to secure jobs within the council after the placements. Personally, I take students because I think it's really good for my own growth. I think you can never stop learning, even at a management level, and students bring a lot to the team. So not only myself, but for other social workers within the team, having the ability to have a student helps with the growth. In terms of the students, whilst a good learning environment is provided, they have the opportunity to see what social work is really like. I think sometimes with university, it's really good to give the theory behind the job, but the ability of them coming onto placement within the team and the council in general gives them the ability to get the frontline kind of practice in terms of the experiences of the day-to-days of what social work is about. In terms of social work, it is a profession where we need more social workers, so it's a benefit for nationwide that we continue to have students, because the only way they can qualify is by coming on the placements. In terms of the students also, it really helps out the team when we have students with the day-to-days. And for the students, I know that in terms of a feel of what social work is like, going back to what I said earlier, the students that have come into the team have either made a decision, actually social work's for me, or actually social work isn't for me, but this is what area I think I need to go down. So yeah, I think that's in summary the decision for me.
Rebecca, can you tell me what are the biggest challenges of taking students?
I think one of the biggest challenges of taking students is it's very time consuming. We're in a very busy profession, where our role doesn't involve having free time to sit around and not really do a huge amount. So a lot of the planning and support that goes into a student placement is done in the practice educator's own time. I think taking students as well, they quite often come with limited experience to the team. So in the line of work that we do, it's very traumatic. I think the students will experience the students will get the opportunity to experience a lot of traumatic events during their placement, and resilience comes with experience. So it's about making sure that you're available to the students and supporting them through that process whilst they're developing their experience. I think another one of the biggest challenges is having failing students. I think that's really emotionally draining on you as a personal educator as well. You can see you're potentially making a decision about a student's career moving forward and potentially ending a career if they don't pass that placement. And so I think that's one of the particular challenges that takes.
Lauren, can you tell me what are the opportunities that you can offer to students outside your team while they're on placement?
Yeah, so firstly, in terms of students that join us, they have the ability to access the training available to Warwickshire. So there's many training within the children and family sector, and they can have the option to go on that. We also, as part of students attending the placement, we start off with an induction process. So we like to induct our students so they get a feel of the teams that are around. So it might be that we send them off to the induction team, it might be that we send them off to MASH, for example, within the council. We also, as part of the induction process, look at our partner agencies. So it could be that we look at agencies like Change Grow Live, for example, where students can go in or have a consultation with to see what that service is about, to be able to inform them of what's available for as their placement progresses. But in terms of learning opportunities, it doesn't just stop at the initial stages of the placement. We like to offer shadowing opportunities throughout the placement, because as a student it's really important that your ability to grasp all the learning opportunities and see kind of what's on offer and how that fits in with practice. So throughout the placement, it'll be working with other teams, because the key is working together is quite clear. We need to work with partner agencies and work with others to keep children safe, and that's what the students will be able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca and Lauren. Annie, I think it's over to you for this bit.
Yes, thank you again, and I echo those thanks to Rebecca and Lauren, and focusing this part of our reflective session now on benefits and the positivities about practice education and being practice educators. And I was wondering whether there is anything, having looked and heard back on what you have said and reflecting on that, whether there is anything more you would want to add or expand on the benefits of being a practice educator. Although, believe you me, Rebecca, I think we all chimed with the challenges. Yeah, but the positives and the benefits, is there anything there that you'd like to expand on? Both Lauren and Rebecca.
Yeah. I don't mind going first. Okay, so I think in terms of the positives of having a student, one significant one for me is, whilst the student comes on to learn, as a team, we learn a lot from students. So it's about making sure that the students are aware that from the beginning. And it's really good to see a student grow. We very much have grow your own in Warwickshire in terms of the culture that we try to embed from the start. So it's really key when you have a student probably that comes with little to no experience of safeguarding and working in a frontline team, to then at the end of the 100-day or 70-day or how long that placement may be for, to say, do you remember when you first started? Let's reflect on where you're at now. So that's always a really good, for me, it's a good outcome 9 times out of 10, and it's really good to see that growth. And like we said, we're gateguarding the profession, so it's really good to get to a stage where we hopefully can then get more social workers attend them.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I often do a kind of emotions journey map with my students when I have them, and they all tend to kind of follow the same thing, where right at the beginning they're almost feeling quite swamped. They're like, what have I walked into? But then over time you see how it goes up and down depending on what's been going on within there. So I think it is really good to see their journey grow. I think the other thing to add to that for me is,
I think it keeps me on the ball as well. I think it's very good to have students. I think to have them reflective sessions with them where you're looking at using like Gibbs and Kolb's model when we're talking about the theories and bringing that into there. And I think students are getting more and more confident in challenging what we do as well and asking, well, tell me why you do that. And I think that's really good because it brings a fresh pair of eyes in and actually gives us the opportunity to kind of sit and have that reflective time as well. So I really enjoy having students.
Yeah, I think the thing that you've just said there is also an example of how it is that the team benefits, because sometimes I mean, and I actually agree with this. I do think that students are of benefit to the teams in which they're placed, but sometimes it's hard to put a finger on, okay, so how has the student benefited the team? But that example of just being in the position where people are asking you, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that way? Gives you that reflective space to think, oh, why am I doing it this way?
Absolutely. I think as Warwickshire, we base ourselves on the restorative model. So we really do encourage high challenge and high support. And I just think it's really good, really, because it ensures that you're giving the best practice and the best service to the communities and families we're working with.
Yeah, and I like that it's much clearer than maybe back in the day when you know I was younger. It's a lot clearer from local authorities what position they're taking. I mean, you could call it a theoretical framework. We could just take it as the model that you're working from. We can call it all kinds of things. But I think it's lovely that it's really clear to students that this local authority is working from a systemic perspective or a restorative perspective. And sometimes we kind of forget that, and we kind of forget that we are actually working from a knowledge and a theory base. And so to be reminded of that, it just becomes our normal, what Donald Shon called knowing in use. Yeah, it just becomes part of what we know, and so to be able to talk about that offers ourselves as well as the student the opportunity to reconsider. So I like the idea that I mean, not that it's any of my business, but I do like the idea that people are working from a restorative perspective. Yeah. Anything else you want to chip in about benefits and positivities of having students? The opportunities it provides you and the opportunities it provides the team?
I think in terms of the opportunities it provides the team and not forgetting the student, I think at the moment it's quite good in our team because we've got a number of students from different universities. So as a collective, I know they have the ability to do reflective supervisions and support each other, because I know, as Rebecca said already, time as a practice educator is limited in terms of what we can actually do and offer in the grand scheme of things. So having that space and having the ability to have students together is really helpful. Sorry, was you going to say something, Annie?
No, I was just going to completely agree that idea that there can be a little collection of students on placement is just lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got that going on at the moment. And sorry, there's someone else speaking.
I think there is somebody else speaking.
Shall I mute? Oh, there we go. That's fine. Thank you. Yeah, so I think in terms, again, of the learning environment, we've got a culture within our team where we try and, well, we brand ourselves a dream team in Nuneaton, but we try and make sure that we are supportive of each other. And I think when you are a student, as long as you come and you're very flexible, you've got clear, obviously, learning objectives that you want to achieve from the placement, and using the initiative where possible, I think you're on good grounds to do well. And I think in terms of the team really take from that as well, because I know a lot of our team have talked a lot from students come in, and we also have a lot of ASYEs in the team. So sometimes we've had students that go on to stay in the team as an ASYE. So again, the learning environment, not only for the student but for the ASYE, it's about reflecting things like theories and models and methods. I know quite often you can forget that when you're not in the academic side of doing the degree. So reminding each other and having those kind of reflective and ongoing conversations, it really is helpful for everyone.
Excellent, thank you very, very much, and thank you for taking the time to make the video and to be sharing with us today. I wonder whether I now can open it up to the people attending the conference to see if you have any comments or queries that you want to put to Rebecca or Lauren, or share your experience with them. But if I start with, are there any questions or comments that people would like to give to Rebecca and or Lauren? Deborah. Oh, and then there's a. Whilst you're talking, Deborah, I'm going to disappear into the chat and see what somebody has just written.
Yeah, I'm interested in you know, what you were saying about sort of remaining a practice educator, and I just wondered if either of you had had experience of sort of supporting a student who was struggling at all, and if so, sort of how you sort of picked yourself up after that and sort of decided to take another student afterwards. That's sort of an area of interest to me at the moment.
Yeah, I don't mind going. In terms of a student, I've had a student that was working towards a failing student. We was able to come back from that, and we had to follow the processes. And yes, it was a difficult time for the student and also a difficult time for myself. I think what I always remember, and I think it's really key for being a practice educator, is that I've got a passion to make sure that others grow, and I really like the fact that we have social workers. I think in terms of the job that we do, it's just reminding ourselves of that, but also the fact is there is a shortage of social workers. So whilst it did go not as I expected for one of the students, I think it's just a key reminding actually as a whole there's a national shortage. So if there's anything we can do as a team to be able to practice educators to better that, then I think that's what's key in terms of moving things forward.
Yeah, I think I would just kind of echo that. I've had a number of students that have been struggling, and it's about making sure that you're offering that additional support for them, making sure that you're making extra time for them, really, because I think the biggest thing you have to remember is this is their opportunity to learn and get the most they can out of a placement. And I think being in such a busy team, it's very difficult sometimes that they're not a staff member, they're a student and they're learning, and it's having to keep reminding the team about that as well and bringing it back. It is very difficult. I have had to fail a student before, and it is emotionally draining. It's actually heartbreaking because you can see that you're devastating someone's life, but ultimately I think for me, as long as I could kind of demonstrate that I'd done absolutely everything I could to support this person and get them to that stage. But it is a very difficult process to go through. It's very time consuming, the amount of paperwork that you have to do to kind of alongside that, and to try and continue that relationship with the student as well. I think the key thing is having them open and honest conversations right from the beginning. If you've got any worries, make sure that you're kind of honestly talking about that throughout.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Deborah, and thanks too for posting in the chat that it's to teams and to a local authority. I wonder whether there's other folk here, whilst we've got some remaining time, who, if there aren't specific questions or comments in relation to Lauren's and Rebecca's content, although actually let me pause and let me not assume just because there was a long pause before doesn't mean to say there will be one now. Is there somebody who still has a comment or a query for Lauren or Rebecca? Has anything chimed or rhymed with anybody that they want to say something about? Okay, so whilst we do have a bit of time, I wonder whether we could just either post in chat or raise your hand out loud and speak out loud by raising a hand first so that we go in some kind of order. But I wonder if we could, even just down the chat, try and make a list of everybody put in that chat one thing. If you're in a position to be able to type, put in there something that you think has benefited you by being a practice educator. And so we have an all charge and write something, and what has benefited you? In what way have you benefited? Something positive that you would say about being a practice educator. And if you don't want to write it, by all means put your hand up and say it, so we can have a quick round robin sharing of the joys of being a practice educator. And if nobody says anything and nobody types anything, we'll know that it's a joyless job and we're deluding ourselves. Have a go. Go on. Thank you. Reminds me why I fell in love with social work in the first place. Seeing my student get a job. Oh, we're on a roll now. What else might people type? I've been given a zest for social work again. Well done, Leanne. Leanne, it's lovely to see your name, even if I can't see you. It's enabled me to improve my practice to the best I can in my role. I'm an independent practice educator now, and I get to learn so much from the students. Improved my supervision skills. Students support my continued professional development. Satisfaction when a student passes, hey, and then comes to work for us. So that experience that you were talking about in Warwickshire as well. Students reignite the passion I have. Knowing that we are safeguarding the future of the profession. Yes, indeed. Excellent. Seeing growth through placement journey and CPD. Not becoming placement in my work. See what you started, Lauren and Rebecca. Well done. Light bulb moments. Yeah, we like those. Developing knowledge of new academic materials. If I have missed reading out loud something that you have posted, please don't take offence. It's just it was coming up so fast for a moment there that I missed it. And it stays in chat for a while, doesn't it? So if what we wanted to do after this was come back into our Microsoft Teams chat and cut and paste it, when we have one of those gloomy days, we can take a look at it and raise our spirits. That's been lovely. Thank you very, very much. Is there any, Deborah, I know that you have also been reading through those, but I'm not putting you on the spot. I was just wondering, is there anything that somebody else has written that has chimed either with Lauren or Rebecca? Is there anything that you want to pick out of what people are writing? This is fantastic. Anything that you want to pick out of what people are writing and say, yeah, that chimes with me.
I think there's something there about growth, isn't there, as well? I think just that's coming out as like, you know, seeing the student grow, and also, you know, how we grow ourselves as well. They're the ones that I think are jumping out to me. And also that really sort of important position of gatekeepers, and as Amanda was saying, safeguarding the future of the profession. So knowing that, you know, the people coming into the profession are the right people, and I think that gives me a lot of joy knowing that you know, and I support a really strong student knowing that, oh my gosh, this person is going to be a social worker, this, you know, that are coming in. That I think that there's a particular joy in that, isn't there?
And the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready-to-go student enthusiasm, because sometimes we need a bit of that, don't we? Thank you for writing that. Okay. Do you know, before we lose the positivity of the moment, before we lose the positivity brought to us by Lauren and Rebecca and all of your own contributions, and indeed by Linda from her experiences too, maybe potentially a smidge early, Deborah, but I'm going to bring this time to a close, thanking Deborah and Linda and Lauren and Rebecca again, and thanking you all for your contributions. Oh, quick way, thank you for coming back, Linda. That's lovely. That's lovely. Deborah, I have a little note that you might have wanted to remind anybody about CPD recording, or have I made that up? I'm so sorry if I've made it up.
No, you haven't at all. So yeah, it's just to remind people, obviously, about recording for your Social Work England CPD record. That, you know, if you sort of contributed today, then that can count as a peer reflection as well. So just reminding you of that as well. And there will be a link for feedback coming your way as well, so that you can give us your feedback on this session and others. And there it is, as if by magic, Adam's popped it in the chat. And our next session in the conference is at 3:30, and that's led by Amanda Fitchett, and is on the very important topic of quality assurance in practice learning and the part that practice educators play in that. So do join for that as well as a little break before. Oh, sorry, it's actually at 2:40. Is it 2:45? I think I may have got that. Is it? No, it is 3:30. It's 3:30. So a bit of a break then before that one. But yeah, do join. That's going to be a fantastic session as well. I will be there. Yeah.
And I'm just going to say, as I go, I'm going to make sure I cut and paste all of those, remove the names so they're confidential, and that is going in my practice educator teaching next year. These are the joys of being a practice educator.
Fabulous. Thanks, Annie. If I get time as well, I'll try and put it into a document and send it out with the other information for people as well. So it's good to have a visual of that, isn't it? So thank you. Thanks everyone for your contributions. Especially Linda, Lauren, Rebecca and Annie. So yes, thank you everyone. You're free to go. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So lovely to